capable of integrating into a system full of, such detailed procedure rules and whatsoever else. I mean, anyone who has ever seen the procedures of UN hearings and the rules to them, it's like, a document that is over 100 pages. And in order to say a word, you need to follow a procedure that is very complicated and sophisticated. Of course, it does not allow for quick decision making. It does not allow for, fast-tracked processing of information. And while you're preparing for something, Trump has already tweeted 10 tweets, and the stock markets have gone crazy. And people are preparing for self-defense in case of nuclear war. I mean, it's the processes are just different. And the future is is up to the leaders, up to communities, and the growing average consciousness of people due to the access to information, education, and creation of content is definitely playing its important role.
Talking about access to information and helping especially the grassroots to understand the changes at the global level, to be able to define internal narratives. I will come to you, Mr. ACHILLE EKEU, because this is a very important aspect that is affecting especially the youthful population of the African continent. I don't know if I should take an example of probably the Republic of Cameroon. When you look at the aspect of selective exposure, you understand that the media in Africa, or particularly in Cameroon, has a role to play to be able to educate, inform the people to align with the roles of the world, and not actually on probably the traditional dictates of events. I think at the moment most countries in Africa are still trapped because they are still living with the theoretical framework of aspects, and then we are seeing drastic changes happening at the international level just to protect the interests of the states. So how can we probably help the African media to draw that agenda for the African continent, that I think the right agenda will help mitigate some of the internal conflicts that we have and draw a new trajectory of politics across the continent?
Well, that is a very good question, Clarisse. I think the role of media has always been very okay. Why am I too close? It looks like I'm too close there. I don't know.
No, it's okay this way.
Okay, let me bring it down a little bit. Okay.
Yeah.
So the role of media has always been very, very important in conflict resolution. Not just in Africa, across the world, but it's also been a tool for conflict creation.
Absolutely.
So because of all these, all these propaganda that are thrust on people every day, every night, all day, that propaganda has effects, and we've seen, for example, in Rwanda, what the role of media has been there to create the environment for a genocide to happen. Absolutely. Right? So in Cameroon, the level of corruption that exists in the media is just so much that you really don't know, what the media are, what is the role of media anymore? Because very few medias are serious, are very organized to allow the public to really get the news without being led one way or another in one or many directions. So it's very complicated, and we always say that the media doesn't live out of society. The media reflects what the society is. And so if there's rampant corruption, it also happens, affects the media, and it affects the news that the media, puts out there. And so Cameroon just had an election, a presidential election, for example, right? So and there are different views on the situation right now. There is a government, the president that was elected, that the Supreme Court has proclaimed as the winner of the election, but the political class and the population, a good part of the population, disagree with that. They claim there was so much fraud that it's not possible that Mr. Biya could be re-elected, given his age, for example, given what he hasn't done for the past few years. And so, and Mr. Chiroma, who is the one who claimed to be the winner, has left the country, and he's trying to figure out how he can get get the people to fight and bring him to power. This is all very complicated. So that means he's going to, they're going to engage in negotiation. I mean, what I've heard, they've engaged in negotiations, and the media has been sharing that negotiation, the aims of the negotiations, and I don't know. It seems like it has stopped, and so people are.
There's actually a proliferation that we have at this particular moment, and that is the one aspect that I see how probably the aspect of internal politics or personal gains, and how it is probably challenging the position of a nation faced with external, external challenges.
Yes, and so that is the issue, and so all these. The situations that the situation that I'm talking about between those two leaders who claim to be leaders, they have an effect. It has an effect on the country and the way people behave, and the media also is taking sides. And so we are going to see a situation where we may get out of control. The situation may get out of control if people don't come to their senses and understand that we only have one place, one country, and that we need to, make sure that everybody is exercising restraint and doing what is appropriate for the country without, going to the extremes. So, and that happened also in Rwanda. It happened in various parts of the continent, and the media has a very eminent and very important role, because if they don't report the information appropriately. Now, not everything has to be reported. That's also a responsibility of the media.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's something that is not good for the community, for the people to hear or to know, then it's fair to censure that. But we don't just share everything for the sake of sharing because we are journalists. Media have that role to play. But the most important aspect of the role of media is to provide a responsible news, responsible information that will help further the positive growth of the country and its citizens, instead of dividing them, instead of exacerbating tensions or divisions or pain points. But so that's what I would say about that question. But I think it's far from from being achieved at this point, and we have a lot of concerns right now with the role of media in the continent, and this is a lot of work that journalists themselves have to do.
Absolutely. I think it's the moment of rewriting the tenets of journalism across Africa if we want to actually make the voice of the continent heard at the international level, because the continent is a major player in terms of geopolitical competition and others. It is imperative to master the game, as was said, for the benefits of the country, continent. Coming back to you, Dean, we have talked about war, its sustainability, the tactics, and then we cannot really go without looking at probably the global arms factory. Those who produce the weapons. This is in line with military war, and also want to also look at the biological war, and then the benefits of such and peace, which will now come at stake, and of course, what is the probability with the new world order, as we were talking, like Yulia said, that it will warrant principles, new principles to reshape this world and not just institutions. So let's look at the correlation between the global arms factory, the peace, and of course sustainability of this peace if we want to put humanity first. Your mic is muted again, please.
Back in 1956, I'm sorry, 1960, just as he left office, was leaving office, then President Dwight D. Eisenhower warned the country of the military, what he coined the phrase, the military-industrial complex. And that's what the military is. And in reality, it's not really military or industrial, it's financial. In the sense that it's the most powerful interest in the country tend to be the financial sector. And they're the ones that actually captured defense policy, so to speak, for their own purposes. And they created this, because it's not just building weapons, it's creating an entire militaristic ideology. And this is the big problem. Making weapons in itself is not it's an industrial thing. It's probably a waste of money. But as people have said in the past, it's the whole question of intent. And in the United States, it really dramatically changed American society, the whole Cold War. The United States, prior to World War II, always had a very small, not always, but it quite often had a big Navy. But the military was extremely small, and it only expanded in time of war. And after World War II, this changed with this Cold War. And we have similar problems, and of course in a different way, in other countries. The problem in Africa, of course, is outside interests financing insurgencies. We have a problem in Sudan, as everyone knows. It's the government, on the one hand, led by General Burhan. Many people might not like this government, but the government's there, and then you have the so-called rapid support forces.
Sure.
Are totally financed out of the United Arab Emirates. And if you read analysts, they will say, well, the UAE is fronting for the British. And in fact, that is the case. Mm-hmm. So if you pulled out these foreign interests, which are generally old imperialists, you might be able to get a solution to these problems.
Of course, pulling out foreign interest as a way towards resolving a conflict or ending or mitigating war with you, CHRISTELLE, NÈANT. We'll now look at the proxy nature of the world, and that should be last year, 2024, when Joseph Borrell was talking. I always want to use his word, like he said, the European Union or other stakeholders involved in the crisis in Ukraine is not there because of their love for Ukrainians, but it's for proxy interest. And now we want to ask this question directly. Do you think the end to the Ukrainian crisis will come when the third parties pull out of the conflict?
I think there is two options for the end of the conflict. Either it goes until the moment Ukraine goes like in complete military failure, and it ends with a very bad capitulation for Ukraine. That's the first scenario. The second scenario is, of course, is if Europe is stopping, increasing the stakes. We have seen already that the conflict is already evolving after the US have begun to get back some of their help, under Joe Biden. So they were providing Ukraine with a lot of financial and military help, which was taken from the American budget. Now they have moved the burden to the European Union, which is not able to afford such a big amount. We see that there are a lot of temptation to use the frozen Russian assets to finance the help to Ukraine, because the European Union leaders are seeing that even by taking all the money they can from the European Union citizens, it's not enough. It's not enough. They will have social unrest, and still it will not be enough. So we already see that Ukraine is already suffering from the less resources that it obtains now from its Western partners, because now Europe has to buy American weapons, which before were provided for, let's say, for free to Ukraine. So we already see that if one of the third parties from this proxy war is beginning to make step back, it's already getting the end of the war closer. So of course, if the European Union is stopping its help, it's the end. Ukraine cannot continue on its own. Without all the West behind to provide weapons, to provide money, Ukraine is a failed state. So of course, if the European Union is saying, okay, we stop this, we have no more the means to continue this help, it's the end, then it's also the end of the war, immediately. Without the insistence of the West in 2022 with this visit of Boris Johnson, we say, don't sign any peace agreement, we will give you money, we will give you weapons, and you will fight till the end, till the last Ukrainian. The thing is that, unfortunately, I don't see such a scenario out of some possibility that at some point all this help is so much damaging the economy of the European Union that they will prefer to, to throw the baby with the bath water instead of facing much tougher consequences in internal politics. Because the risk of social unrest is very big. We already see in countries like France that people are not okay with the fact to continue paying for Ukraine, especially after the last corruption scandal, which involves people who are close to Zelensky. So we see now that there are very few options to end this war. Either Trump is able to push Ukraine to sign the agreement, but I don't think there are more chance about it, or European Union is making a step back, but this also has very few chances. Unfortunately, from what I see, all this has come to a very ideological point of view. European leaders have repeated many times that the defeat of Ukraine would be the defeat of NATO, it would be the defeat of the European Union, and of course they cannot accept that. So they have blocked themselves in a dead end. And unfortunately, when you put yourself in such a position, the way to get out of it will not be bright and will not be good. So I unfortunately expect that the bigger, I say, the chances, probabilities will be that unfortunately they will push Ukraine until the point that the country cannot continue to fight anymore and will completely collapse, both militarily and economically, from all this war, and will have to sign a very bad and shaming capitulation.
Very problematic indeed. We are culminating with this discussion, so I'll come to each one of you for the last analysis for today on this particular topic, because subsequently we'll continue to observe the events, how they are unfolding, and continue to bring forth constructive analysis, educating, informing, and leaving people with an opportunity to make decisions based on the realities. I start with you, dear Yulia. From all that has been said already, we can attain that conclusion to say that war is actually a central part of politics, especially at the international level, given its competitive nature. So what is the proposed solution to actually mitigate these occurrences of war of any form in a new world dimension?
Well, there was a recent public statement by Vance, and it was quite funny because he said that Ukraine and Russia should trade and cooperate and develop their humanitarian ties and whatsoever else. And this was quite hilarious given the context and given the rhetorics that everyone was quite used to. But definitely that's the way forward, because when you have economic ties, when you have trade, when you have humanitarian ties that Russia and Ukraine had to a great extent, and I mean, we have family ties that are so intersected that sometimes it's really hard to say who is Ukrainian and who is Russian. You know, it's pretty much the same shades of the very same thing. So this, I believe, is the only way forward anyway. And even though the statement thrown into the public space by Vance to many sounded ridiculous or not realistic, that's what it was, and that's what it's going to be anyway. And that's the only way to avoid confrontations and conflicts when you have bigger issues that are more important, and you don't want to get into a conflict because you don't want to lose benefits, because you have the ties, because you have the understanding, and you have shared strategic goals. I mean, Russia and China could have been in conflict as well, because Russia has what China needs to a great extent, right? Resources and territory, and there were historical conflicts. But still, there is a mutually beneficial economic way forward that is found when China benefits from cheap resources and Russia benefits from goods and parallel imports and many other things that China has been providing, especially since the beginning of this special military operation. So even though, you know, conflicts could be possible between almost any country, I mean, the way that the nation states are designed and the borderlines do already contain a lot of potential conflict and potential escalation points, because it can never be fixed once and forever. And if 100 years ago we had how many? Less than 100 states on planet Earth, on the political map of our planet. Now we have almost 200 of them, and there is a tendency for creation of smaller and smaller and smaller states, right?
Sure.
And things like nation identity are being built to those, and more of, you know, separation and division is happening in order to create new entities and call them states later on. So the current trend is not for unification, even though we do have regional alliances of different shape. But the current trend is for creation of more and more little states. And this is doomed for conflicts, because little states cannot survive on their own. they cannot be completely autonomous, and there will always be some kind of a struggle for resources unless there are clear rules of the game for trade and development of overall strategic goals and following those.
Indeed, it's about strategic goals and what is beneficial to the continent or probably the country and the population. And it brings us to you, Mr. Achille EKEU. When we want to look at war, we see that it's actually an integral part of politics, like has been underlined. If we want to take from the last statement of Yulia, like the strategic goals of a particular nation, what do you think, in your perspective, it should be that strategic goal for the entire African continent? Because if we want to bring our analysis enshrined in the dictates of Pan-Africanism, it warrants that we should talk holistically as a continent, and then looking at those institutions that can chart categorically and strategically the African agenda. As we are actually on this platform, we are aware that the Republic of South Africa is hosting the G20 summit, and this is the first of its kind on the African soil. And it also comes at, there is some sort of war of words, which I can call, between South Africa, the Republic of South Africa, and the United States. And you see that officially, the U.S. is not really present at this very important gathering. So with all that has been said and all understood about war and politics and how diplomacy plays in, what is that take-home package that will resonate not just to the global audience, but particularly to the African continent major stakeholders? Your mic is muted, please.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to give some statistics about global wars for the past 200 years, for example, right? So United States is leading the pack with about 224 military conflicts, right? That is the most, from one country. And United Kingdom is following the 171 wars and 83 interventions, between the segmenting between wars and interventions. And France also had dozens of wars, colonial wars, about 50 plus interventions. Russia, Soviet Union's 25 interventions, and so on. So from an African perspective and from Pan-Africanist perspective, war too often is imposed or perpetrated by external powers, right? So it serves as an instrument of domination, and that is going to deepens Africa's challenges and undermines the unity, the development, and the sovereignty of the continent. So Pan-Africanist, stands for indirect opposition, to that legacy. So the ultimate response is clear and uncompromising. Africa must refuse to be a battlefield for the ambitions of others, and reject war as a mechanism of control that we see, that has been used against us for the past 200 years. So instead, the continent should harness, its diversity, its history, its shared destiny, to build peace and foster collaboration, and as well as drive sustainable prosperity. So for Pan-Africanists, the solutions are dialogues, integration, innovation, solidarity, and that's part of what we call the Mahat, the Mahat, philosophy that our ancestors used before, long before colonization or slavery started. So those are the antidotes for division and exploitation. So to finish my point, true power for Africa is going to be it lies in not in war but in rejecting external manipulation, in standing together, as a unity, as a united force, and forging also a future that will be built on unity and self-determination. So that's the path forward for Pan-Africanists, that are a powerful force today on the continent.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Eke. Coming to you, Dean, for your final conclusion on this topic, and we want to look at the preventive as well as the opportunity war, and probably getting from you the real theory or principles that can guide international politics in today's world, while limiting the effects, particularly on the population, since war is something that is already inevitable, as from what we can conclude from our analysis which we had today. Your mic, please.
Harley brought up the question of the Treaty of Westphalia, where you had a 30 years war, a religious war, and it ravaged Europe. I mean, it reduced the population significantly, and the warring powers came together. I think it lasted 3 years, the conference. And they hammered out a peace agreement. The fundamental principle was that each nation should look towards the interests of the other nation. And that's precisely what international affairs should be based on at this point. And economically, it's clear. I mean, a vibrant, unified, continental Africa on the world stage would be a tremendous effect on world peace, and it would provide a tremendous economic partner for Europe and the United States, where it won't be this zero-sum game, but it'd be two countries cooperating in developing each other, because world trade has been hijacked by the financial system, and it is utilized for speculation, commodity speculation in particular. But world trade should be part of the division of labor, where countries cooperate for the development of one another. Mm-hmm. And this is the only way you're going to guarantee the end of war. And this is what we need now. I mean, our former colleague said, one of our colleagues, Ms. BERG said that pointed to a statement by Vice President Vance about Russia and Ukraine cooperating economically, and there's no reason for not, because they were cooperating for 1,000 years before the NATO expansion policy, and this is the only, I believe this is the only way out, the only way to stop this constant.
Absolutely. And to end with you, Christelle, as a journalist, we also know that, like Mr. Eke highlighted already, communication has a greater role to solving or mitigating the wars across the globe. So, in your own perspective, knowing that war seemingly is probably is inherent in nature, and as a result of probably it comes as a result of some dynamics which are not very complementary in politics. So how can the media, the role of the media, particularly alternative media, play in this strategic era to mitigate especially psychological war, which sometimes it seems to be more dangerous even because killing the mind is killing a complete human being alive.
The media are not only part of the psychological war, they're also part of the physical war. As I said, the first victim of war is truth. We have seen, as in the previous decades, how lies made by authorities and not challenged by the media led to the complete destructions of many countries, including in Africa. It was the case for Libya. It was the case also in the Middle East. I mean, I have to remember this big lie about the mass destruction weapons of Saddam Hussein, which was the official reason to attack Iraq. More than 1 million civilians paid of their life this lie. That's why the role of the media is so important. In the new world which is building, we really have to get rid of all these deviations from the rules which should be for all the journalists. We have seen how especially the Western media, or the media supported by the West, so financed by the USA, the NED and so on, have propagated a lot of lies, including now against Russia, to justify supporting neo-Nazis in Ukraine. And for me, I think there was not enough done. Perhaps 80 years ago, during the Nuremberg trial, only the main propagandist of the Third Reich was sued and condemned for his propaganda. I think that really there should be something done against the people who have closed their eyes, who have lied, who have propagated fakes into the media, in the mainstream media, which have led to wars all around the world, allowing for killing of a lot of innocent people, because their role is not small. Even Julian Assange said, every war begins with the lies. Every war begins with lies, and that's where the alternative media are so important. We really have to develop a very big amount of alternative media, and we have to build them in the spirit of cooperation, respect, and work together that we want to see in a political level in the world. It means I think all these media should be like a living example of what the international politics, the international diplomacy should look like. So respecting each other, each with its interests, but not, walking on the bands of the others, while working together in a spirit of cooperation, of mutual beneficial cooperation. And I think on this, that's something which is already building, as we see. We see a lot of cooperation between media in Africa, in Russia, and some alternative media in Europe. And I think we should continue in this way, because the media have a very big role into helping people understand what is the real situation, building their own opinion. And at the end, it is the people who will push to end this cycle of non-necessary wars, by understanding all the causes and consequences of these artificially built conflicts.
Okay. Which is very imperative, of course. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for today, and especially to this esteemed panel for the great insight, historical backgrounds, alternative analysis of what the world has as information pertaining war, and I continue to appreciate your time and your insight as we continue to inform, educate the people in a more complex society. I want to thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, for being part of this program. And from the analysis, we can already conclude that war actually is already an integral part of politics, and now it warrants countries to be more strategic, to define national interest, so as to mitigate the negative or adverse effects of war and engage in more constructive war that can help attain the interest of a state for the benefit of the population and not for a selective few. Thank you, and I wish that you have a lovely moment in the company of programs on Pan-African media, and I will come back to you subsequently with the very vital and timely topics as we continue to change the way we think and do, or probably act towards the events around us. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you, Jean.
Thank you.
Esther,
All the best.
bonsoir.
Okay. Have a good weekend.
You too. You too.
This program was brought to you by GLOBUS.